Here at Kingdom 320, we have a student named Leslie who found a wholesale deal where the profit was $30,000. But she was also able to transform the life of a family in the process. And in today's episode, we got her to actually share her story. My name is Nate Dukes, and I am an advisor here at Kingdom 320. And welcome to our Wednesday interviews, because it's Wednesday. You get it? It's Wednesday. Yeah, okay, you get it. Anyways, Leslie shared her story about getting into real estate with Kingdom 320 and the emphasis of putting her faith in the Lord and hearing the voice of God. She said she couldn't have done it without listening to him. Now, she's been a prayer leader at her church. She's been a missionary overseas, and she talks about her plans to actually scale this business. We're really excited to listen to what she has to say, but the true power in her story comes about halfway through, where she shares the impact that she was able to make in a family's life through this process. So thank you again to all of our followers, all of our subscribers. You are amazing. And by the way, this content isn't free. That's right, it's not free. You got to pay for it. There's a follow button or there's a subscribe button. So click on that and pay your dues. But in all seriousness, if you're finding value of this, please consider subscribing. And if you want to learn more about investing into real estate, hopefully you enjoy Leslie's story, but you can also check out our website, kingdom320.com. There's some free resources to download, a toolkit, a deal analyzer tool that will actually help you get started investing into real estate God's way. So grab your tissues. It's a good one, guys. Let's dive in. All right, what's your name and where are you from?
I am Leslie Freeman and currently living in San Diego. Hard to say where I'm from, military child, but I'm currently in San Diego.
The sunny state of California. And how'd you find Kingdom 320?
I was invited to an event, I think here in San Diego in April, by a friend of mine who was also she's a realtor and she was interested in the investment side of it. I think maybe she and her husband had gone to the Life Surge event that was here. And I didn't know anything about it, but I just randomly ran into her and she was like, you should go to this, because she knew I was kind of thinking about real estate and kind of wanting to get involved. So she just invited me and I was like, yep, I'm going to come. So that was that.
So invited from a friend, you end up joining Kingdom 320 and you've completed this amazing deal. What exit strategy did you use for that?
This was a wholesale deal. And to be honest, when, probably as with a lot of people, when you start trying to figure out, when you get in this coaching program, what do I do first? Where do I go? Should I do a flip? Should I do a wholesale? Should I go right into investing? And you're trying to figure all of that out. I don't know that I would have said, oh, I'm definitely going for a wholesale deal first out, but it just literally fell in my lap. And so I was like, God, this is your provision. I'm doing it, so that's what happened.
Amazing. And can I ask you, Leslie, when you decided to join Kingdom 320, or even like right before joining the program, can you tell me, like, were you nervous? Were you skeptical? Like, how did you feel coming into this thing?
I think all of the above. But to be honest, I have been thinking about real estate for I guess probably 7 or 8 years as a means of generating additional income. And so I've just been kind of prayerfully considering, like, okay, what does this look like? Do I need to be a real estate agent? That doesn't feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And then when I started learning about this idea of investing, I was like, oh, okay. And so for me, I actually, my full-time job is I teach and train prayer and ministry teams in my other job. It is absolutely a passion of mine. And so I've said before, I'm doing real estate because I believe in it as a ministry, but I also basically am obsessed with fueling my other obsession, which is teaching people to hear God's voice. So I was questioning that all the way in, like, Lord, I'm already doing this thing for you over here. Why would you be leading me into real estate? What is the deal with real estate? But then again, for me, as someone who really wants to cultivate that listening skill and just that following and obeying, I was like, okay, I'm going to take one step at a time. follow the breadcrumb trail and see where it leads me, because I believe the Lord wants me continuing to do both. And so, yeah, I'll talk more about that later, I'm sure, but that's kind of nutshell.
Yeah, and
Beautiful.
I think what you touched on is really important. Is number one, wanting to cultivate hearing from God. And I think that's just so important of like, number one, you have to know that you're called into real estate. And so
Mm-hmm.
now you're feeling, okay, I'm doing ministry. I'm teaching people how to hear the voice of God. And I'm now starting to hear the voice of God saying, do real estate.
Yeah.
What does that process look like for you and deciding to actually take that step forward and get started? What were you feeling in that moment?
Well, I think, I mean, just my life story is follow the breadcrumb trail. It's, I think that the Lord created us to hear him and to work with him. And so that can be a million different things. And so learning how to follow him and obey and just walk one step at a time has been something that I have cultivated in so many areas of my life. I mean, we all do it, right? Like in parenting, in whatever jobs we have, just in life in general. This is a skill that we want to have. And so hearing God say, I want you to do this for me. I mean, we moved to Germany to do missions for 3 years out of nowhere, out of the Christian music industry when we were living in Nashville. So I was like, there was part of me that was like, okay, this is kind of normal for me. We take left turns, you know, but then it was also another step of faith because I desperately don't want to disappoint the Lord and what he has for my life. And so probably a little perfectionism in there of not wanting to make a mistake. But what I decided to do was, even in that, just trust God that if I take some steps of faith, that if he doesn't want me there, that he'll shut the door. And the testimony of the wholesale deal is I kept questioning, like, Lord, is this really it? Do you really want me to continue? Am I crazy? Like, I've already got such a huge plate of things going on with the ministry side. Like, how can I even do this with time? And then I prayed and asked God, I was like, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to make something happen, because I honestly don't even have time for this, you know? And then the next week was when my realtor friend called me and said, hey, I have this situation. Can you help this lady? And I was like,
Wow.
yes. With God's help, I can. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I want to get into the nitty gritty of the transaction and the wholesale deal. But what would you say to someone out there, Leslie, that's thinking about real estate and obviously the acumens and benefits that come alongside that, you know, like the financial freedom being a goal, time freedom being a goal. What
Right.
would you say to someone, maybe another perfectionist that feels like, again, they maybe don't have the time to do something like this? Like, what would you say to them?
Mm. Well, I kind of feel like if I have time to do it, it's really an issue of prayer. You know,
What
it's
do you mean
really,
by that?
I mean, it's an issue of, like I said before, just following what you feel like you're sensing from God. And then actually, there's an element of trust here that's really, I think, key, because we actually can trust that God's not up there wanting for us to fail.
Wow.
Because I feel like I think people think sometimes that he's got his arms crossed until we do all the perfect things, and then he's going to somehow release his blessing. That's not what fathers do. If my motive of my heart is to follow him with my life, he knows that. And so I trust him that he's going to shut the door if I'm not supposed to go in a direction. He's not going to lead me off a cliff and be like, well, if you'd have prayed for 5 more minutes, I'd have told you, sorry, you know. And so I think acting on what we believe about God and his character and who he's called us to be in the earth, to steward the earth, is absolutely vital to following any roadmap, whether it's real estate or some other thing. And you can trust God that he's going to close the door if you're not supposed to go down that road. So I guess I don't know if that answers your question, but that's just my belief system coming out in this. So
Well, and what I love more than anything is number one is that you're connected to God. You're hearing his voice, you're hearing a calling, and then you know you have to make a decision at that point. Do I act in obedience or do I act in disobedience? And so you've heard from God, you take a step forward, you feel like I don't have time for this, and your real estate friend calls you because you're sharing about the new journey that you're going on, and says,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, can you help this person?"
Mm-hmm.
And let's get into that. Like
Let's talk about it.
let's talk about that deal. Like what happened? Can you share
Mm-hmm.
some of the journey that you went on and how it unfolded?
Well, first off, I just want to say too that uh, I think faith is not an issue of a feeling. It is a partnership. So we're listening to what we think God is telling us. We're willing to accept the fact that we might be wrong, but that He's also a good father, right? And so we do take steps of faith in directions, even if we're still questioning ourselves. So the thing that I had to do was just go, I don't know why I'm feeling led in this way, but I'm going to educate myself. So way before I even got into Kingdom 320, I started listening to podcasts and looking around and researching and just doing things. And like I said, with the whole breadcrumb trail thing, it led me to my random friend that invited me to the random thing. And then I found out about Kingdom 20 and enrolled. After I got into Kingdom 320, I was like, you know what? This is the year. This is the year of action. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And I'm the worst thing that could happen is waste a few $1,000s or something like I just was like, this is not a big issue for God, right? So I just joined Kingdom 320, decided I was going to have NCH set up my business for me. And then I left town, y'all. I left town because my husband and I work full time at a summer camp, and I work 60 hours a week in the summer.
Wow.
And so I didn't, like I said, when I said I don't have time, I don't have time, you know. So I got back in the fall and just started picking back up my researching. But my steps of faith were, I'm setting up my business entity. Mm-hmm. I'm at least going to do that, right? So then in October, when my friend that's a realtor, he called me and said, hey, I've got this lady. She's taking care of her mom, but she's in San Diego and her mom is in Yuma, Arizona. And her house is in such a state that the mom's got dementia. She's now been removed from the home. The daughter's got power of attorney. She's trying to take care of her mom. They don't have a lot of financial resources. And the mom's in bad health, and the daughter has cancer herself. They need cash out of that house, and I need somebody who I can trust, and I know I can trust you to do this deal and to get her as much as you possibly can for that house. Can you help her? And I was like, yes. So my friend actually knew, my realtor friend, he knew it was my first wholesale deal. And so he got on the phone with me and the seller, and we both talked to her about the process. He wasn't as familiar actually with all the process of it, because he's a realtor. And but I ended up getting her verbal commitment to just walk through the house. So she told me, how to go get the key and all that stuff, because there was nobody in the house. It was vacant. And then I did the walkthrough. I immediately got a coaching session with Antoine and with Coach Antoine, and asked him if he would help me. And thankfully he said yes. So what I'm trying to say is every door I came to, it opened. And every single step of the way throughout the entire deal, when I didn't know the next step, there was a provision somewhere along the line to make everything it was like dominoes that were falling. I had, after I assessed the house and I looked at the property, it was in a really sad shape, y'all, and did all the videos and everything. And I used our lead gen software to create the Kingdom 320 platform and the lead gen to create an assessment of what I thought the repairs would be and everything. And I ran that past another broker friend of mine that does real estate investment here in San Diego. God, like the day I got back from Yuma, I happened to have a small group meeting at my church where this guy was going to be there. And I was like, hey, could I meet with you a few minutes early? Could you look at something for me? And so it was like not in every possible place where I needed something to step in and help me complete the deal. It happened. And so we got on the phone with her, and it was sad to have to tell her that I couldn't offer her, as much as she thought she was going to get for the house, but it was still a good amount, and it would be able to get her mom moved from Yuma to San Diego. So we got a contract for that. And then, Antoine helped me through all the other steps, the title company. He found our end buyer. And so he was working that side of things while I was working with the seller the whole way through and praying with her about her family and her cancer and all that. And we closed about 3 weeks later. And like I said earlier, we made around 30,000-ish profit that we split, and did not know that we would make that much going into it. I was really going into it more for the experience of doing it. And I thought, even if I make $2,000 off this, it's worth it to just have the education side of it. And I will say 1,000% it was worth it, because everything that I was confused about in my head about the process of it, of a wholesale deal, I came out of this and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm not going to do this by myself for the first few times, but I can do this, and so it was amazing. And then, like, the last thing I would say, just as a cherry on top, is a few days after we closed, the seller actually texted me and she said, Leslie, thank you so much for doing this deal so quickly for me. We got my mom moved. She was going to be removed from the nursing home that she was in the day that we closed or something. I mean, it was like this crazy timing. And she was able to move her to San Diego. She said, I did not know how bad of health she's in, and she's dying. Because we did this deal so fast, I'm able to be with my mom for the last week of her life. And I just burst into tears, y'all. I was like, Lord, this is why I'm doing this. This is why the full-time prayer leader is in real estate. Because of the people that we get to be with in some of the most difficult situations of their life. I want to do that 1,000 more times, not just because of the profit of it, but because I'm very aware now that I'm rescuing people, and it was such a blessing to be able to pray through on the phone with the seller multiple times throughout the deal process. And so, yeah, it was amazing. And I can't wait to get my next deal, because I just want to do that again, So I guess that was probably the best. And so I'm excited to see what God will bring my way in this upcoming spring.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that deal. Obviously, that is huge, not just for the financial benefit that you got to receive, but also too, I mean, I think more importantly, you got to be not just the king, but also the priest, being a guide through this process, being a light in dark places for people, being salt and light to the earth, and being a reflection of God's love, which is what we're called to do, going out into the world and making disciples. And the way that we do that is, well, number one is we have to let the love of God flow through us to connect with people. And so that's what I love so much about your story is the connection that you made with somebody. And you also got to provide and take care of your family as well too. So you're excited to continue to build it within real estate, to start finding more deals. What do you think the future holds for you within real estate? What are you excited about right now?
Geez, I just don't know. I think the fact that I saw the potential of the combination of ministry and this business was huge, because Kingdom 320 is really the place for me to be, honestly, because this is my outlook on life, is everything is spiritual. Everything is an opportunity for us to show God's love to somebody. And so I don't want to be anywhere else as far as coaching and mentoring. But I think for right now, what I'm focusing on is continuing to be able to do that again, really getting my infrastructure set up and some marketing going, so that I have some systems in place that I can just have leads being generated for me so that I can, because I feel like just right out of the gate, my ability to connect with people is strong. I mean, I feel like, and that's really what I want to do. That's where I want to be in that process. I don't know that I'm a numbers person. I'm going to have to get a lot more help with that, but I can talk to people. And so, as far as building goes, I do hope to scale to a point that I have passive investment going on, but I definitely feel also called to train and equip and teach people in the business world to hear God's voice and what that looks like. And so I'm actually hoping that my stories continue to be miracle stories for the reason of, just that I want for people to understand that God wants to work with them. It's not like he's over here waving a magic wand and blessing what they're doing on their own over here. It's actually a combined thing. And so I think there's a million different ways that I could go with it. But as far as legacy and taking care of my family, I'm hoping to practically build retirement and stuff like that. But really would love to see God explode some type of ministry. In my other job where I'm teaching also, I actually have a lot of connection with a lot of business people, a lot of CEO type people, and even government people, and it's kind of weird the ratio of CEOs that we have that come to our camp. It's wild. And so it's nice to be able to have some experience as a business person myself. So I can see it going both ways, where I'm able to impact in the Kingdom 320 world, and also in the people that I meet there, and then also in my other job that I've had for 20 years, that I don't want to give up.
It sounds like a good day job.
Oh yeah.
And you're married, is that right, Leslie?
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know as we start businesses and take entrepreneurial plunges into things, when we're married, we have another person to consider,
Yeah.
What's kind of been like your husband's take on, you doing, has it been mostly you kind of shouldering a lot of this, or is he like, what's his involvement with it?
Well, we're just a really bunch of creative people, to be honest. And so my husband is a barber, but he's been in Christian music for 25 years and has been a worship leader for 25 years. And so he's got a musician thing going on. He's got a worship artist thing going on, and then he's doing hair. And so he is all for me being in real estate. He's my cheerleader all the way. He was super excited, but when I got asked to do anything with regards to the event in Dallas that we had, he was like, "Oh, you have to go," And so he's just very, very supportive. And he actually is very good at home decor, and like I could see him coming in when we start doing it, if we do any flips or anything like that, kind of helping me with aesthetics that way. But yeah, he's full-time running after the things that God has for him. And so he's just really excited to see how we as business builders now are moving forward with what God's called us to do. So we're like both full-time in ministry and then also full-time in the marketplace in our different areas right now. So we're empty nesters. We are old people ish. I'm I'm a half a century plus old. So I'm looking to be able to see, I have one grandson. So I'm looking forward to being able to hopefully have that financial freedom to be able to go and travel more to see my kids and all that as we launch into that season of our lives. So very exciting.
Beautiful.
What I love most is that you shared that we're in full-time ministry and we're full-time in the marketplace. And I mean, both of those require so much of you and your time, but you've found a way to prioritize things that are important to you. I just think that's so wonderful. What advice would you maybe give to someone who's on the fence about getting into real estate. Maybe they've started to feel the pull or the call towards it, but
Mhm.
they're still unsure of what their next step is.
I mean, immediately trust the Lord. Trust the Lord that He's good. Trust the Lord that He has good plans in store for you, and He's not going to lead you down a dead end road. That because His faithfulness is comprehensive, that every step that you could make in any direction, He already has a plan set in motion to release His faithfulness. If we surrender to who He is and understand the depth of His love for us as a father and as a provider, that it's near to impossible for us to make a wrong decision unless we're just being willful and we don't want to hear anything from the Lord. So I think His faithfulness is so much more, like I said before, comprehensive than we can even imagine. I remember, can I tell a quick story?
Please.
So I was we've had a couple of very hard years, just internally, with my husband and I, and just in our family. We had to step down from a job situation that we were both on staff at a church, and it was just kind of like really hard because you do have those times that come up, and maybe I'm saying this for somebody that's hearing this, but you do have those times that you come up where you're like, well, what about that? You know, and so I was in my kitchen, like pacing back and forth, going, okay, you told me to move to San Diego. What is going on? Because the wheels are coming off the wagon, you know. And I remember so clearly, it was almost like the Holy Spirit just stepped into the room for a second with me to give me some perspective. And He said, Leslie, people make choices. He said, for every choice that could be made that would impact you negatively or positively, or every choice that you could make that would impact someone negatively or positively, my faithfulness is so comprehensive that I have already figured out in every possible scenario how I can be faithful to you. And I was like, oh, His faithfulness is not linear and dependent on perfection on my part or anyone else's. And so it's really blowing the doors off of our understanding when we look at the things that define God. He says about Himself in Exodus 34 that He's faithful. So He's the definition, not my definition, His own. And so I think my advice is to trust that God is faithful and continue to show up with Him, surrender your life to Him, and trust Him to make your paths straight, like He says in Proverbs, right?
Whoever's listening to this right now, I don't know if you have a notepad out or not taking notes, but she is just, Leslie's dropping bombs right now that I think people need to pay attention to for sure. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much, Leslie, for taking the time out of your day to hang out with us and talk about this. Again, congratulations on your first real estate transaction, $30,000 deal. That's amazing. But really, that $30,000 profit seems to me, based on your story, just kind of the byproduct of service. And it's one foot in front of another throughout this whole thing, and you just kept people at the forefront of your mind, thinking about them, wanting to serve them, and provide for them, and that byproduct, the abundance, to come, for your family. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Leslie. Nate, do you have any final thoughts for Leslie before we go?
I just want to say thank you for sharing your story and being so transparent about everything. I think that whenever we step into a new season or we step into a new vehicle that we feel like God is calling us to, there can be all kinds of emotions wrapped up in fear and uncertainty and negative self-talk. And what the big takeaway that I pulled away from you, Leslie, is that, like, yes, that's going to be there. But we also can stand firm and trust that God is who he says he is.
Mm-hmm.
And that we have a mountain of evidence behind us showing his faithfulness. Not
Mm-hmm.
only that, but also what the word literally says, that he is faithful. And so we
Mm-hmm.
can either choose to stand on the negative self-talk and the fear, or we can stand on what we know to be true. And the big thing that I wrote down as you were talking is that faith isn't a feeling. It's not just something that we feel. It can be an action that we take. And so, yeah, is there any final thoughts that you have? Any last minute thing that you'd like to share with somebody that might be listening to this, that might be considering what their next steps look like, or maybe even already starting to do real estate and feeling those negative self-talk? What would you start to say to them?
Well, with reference to the negative self-talk thing, I just want to say I'm not superhuman. I've come back to the Lord like almost, it feels like weekly. I'm like, are you sure you want me to be in real estate? Like I'm still asking that because I'm just questioning my own motives all the time. But I do think you're right in that we can actually trust that as we're stepping forward, that it's really not all up to us. We're not orphans out here just all on our own, having to strive and struggle and all of that. And I would say, um, as I will be doing repetitively on repeat, continuing to trust God and continuing to wake up and choose to believe that God is for me and that I don't need to get into fear. And anytime I start feeling like I'm in fear about something, I'm going to back up and worship for a little bit, sit in God's presence, maybe back up from the situation and realign myself with his voice again. And so that is really my encouragement, because my experience has been that every time I've done that, even in the little things like with websites and infrastructure and creating marketing and all those things that I'm still getting into place right now, I've seen God come and give me like, okay, now do this. Okay, now do this. Okay, now do this. And so I just believe that for everybody. I don't think I'm unique. I don't think that I'm the only one that he wants to work with like that. I think that's for everyone. So
Yeah, I mean, this is gold right now. I mean, you've definitely spoken to my heart, and I really appreciate you sharing and being very transparent and open and honest through this whole process. So thank you so much for being here with us, Leslie. This has been
for sure.
wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.